Stay composed. A frequently misunderstood yet potent trait in a world fixated on clamor and response. Where every viewpoint is yelled, every feeling displayed, every action recorded, there lies strength and restraint. The individual who doesn't wince, who doesn't pursue, who doesn't display his cravings, is the one others dread the most. This isn't about indifference. It's about command, calmness, authority, masked as disinterest. To stay composed isn't to care less, but to care wisely, to hide intentions, to stay inscrutable. Machiavelli grasped that appearances are tools. He instructed that the leader must seem serene even when turmoil engulfs him. Because once others perceive your desperation, they can exploit it. But when they see nothing, when your gaze betrays no need, your expression no urgency, your speech no alarm, they are left powerless, they cannot comprehend you. And what cannot be grasped becomes formidable. The composed man holds his strength in quietude. He communicates sparingly. He acts with precision. He doesn't hurry to fill the silence with sound, nor does he exhibit the full spectrum of his feelings. He is disciplined. He is intentional. While others react to every slight, every whisper, every change in the breeze, he stays motionless. Not because he is passive, but because he is observing, assessing, waiting. There is might in making others uncertain, in becoming the query that remains in their thoughts. Why doesn't he react? Why doesn't he pursue? Why doesn't he care? Their bewilderment becomes his edge, their curiosity his command. The instant you cease reacting, the instant you stop reaching, you start to attract others. The world gravitates toward enigma. It shuns the predictable and clings to the unfamiliar. Machiavelli never promoted emotional transparency. He penned that a sovereign must conceal his intentions. Composure is the ideal facade. It isn't an absence of emotion, but the mastery of it. It is displaying nothing while experiencing everything. Contemplating deeply while seeming detached. Holding the advantage while feigning ignorance. When you are composed, you dictate the emotional atmosphere. Others must speculate about your feelings. They must guess your desires. You provide no hints, no evident cues, no openings. They engage in your game while believing it's their own. And by the time they realize it, they've already exposed themselves. Their strategies are revealed. Yours stay concealed. This is psychological strategy. The one who appears to require nothing often governs everything, because what you seem to lack, others hasten to supply. What you pretend not to desire, others attempt to bestow. Your detachment fosters pursuit. Your silence breeds tension. Your calm exudes authority, but this calm isn't innate. It is cultivated. The composed man has taught himself to pause, to delay, to observe. He has established a gap between his emotions and his expressions. He doesn't mistake urgency for action. He doesn't confuse visibility with impact. He moves only when it counts. And when he moves, people take notice. You cannot plead for respect and anticipate receiving it. You cannot beg for attention and preserve dignity. The man who is genuinely assured, truly in command, appears to care less. Even when he cares deeply, he never reveals it prematurely. He comprehends that emotion is a currency, and he expends it judiciously. The world respects what it cannot fully fathom, what it cannot foresee, what it cannot dominate. The composed man becomes an emblem of this resistance. He is the epitome of discipline in an era of impulse. He is the specter in the room brimming with noise, the one who divulges nothing yet perceives everything. And in a world that incessantly clamors to be heard, the one who speaks the least often commands the most. If this notion challenges your perception of confidence, leave a comment. Share how you've witnessed composure unfold in your own life. And if you wish to delve deeper into the minds of history's most disciplined thinkers, my book, Guided by the Greats, A Path to Self-Improvement, is linked in the pinned comment and video description. It's your next stride toward composure, power and enduring clarity. Now let's proceed further. Composure isn't born from arrogance. It's born from clarity. The man who sees clearly has no need to react. He has already computed the outcome. He has already accepted what can be controlled and discarded what cannot. There's no internal chaos to manage. So his external world remains still. He becomes untouchable. Not because nothing affects him, but because he refuses to be seen flinching. Most people display their insecurities openly. They apologize before they speak. They laugh too loudly. They overshare. They seek validation before they've earned it. But the composed man navigates the world differently. He doesn't look around to see who's watching. He doesn't adjust his stance for approval. He stands as though he belongs because he has already decided that he does. This composure is unsettling. It threatens the frantic. It exposes the insecure because while others are trying to prove something, he proves nothing. He simply exists. And in a world addicted to attention, to resistance, to drama, the man who refuses to be shaken becomes impossible to ignore. Machiavelli wrote that it is not enough to be strong. One must appear strong. In the same way, it is not enough to feel composed. One must appear unmoved because the appearance becomes reality. If others believe you are in control, they treat you as if you are. If they believe you are unaffected, they begin to question their own behavior. You control their perception by mastering your own expression. Composure is not a costume you put on. It's not an act for approval. It is the product of a mind that no longer chases what does not matter. It's the reward for mastering your impulses, for breaking your dependency on attention, for realizing that urgency is often the enemy of power. The man who acts with urgency gives up the throne. The man who moves slowly, who speaks sparingly, who waits, he begins to rule. There's an energy in restraint, a deep, quiet power that comes from doing less, saying less, reacting less. Every time you withhold an emotional response, you take ownership of yourself. Every time you let someone else reveal their motives while you remain still, you gain insight. And insight is the currency of advantage. Others may call it cold. They may call it distant. But the composed man does not flinch at misunderstanding. He is not here to be liked. He is here to win. And winning in the Machiavellian sense is not about having more. It's about outlasting, outmaneuvering, outwitting. Do not mistake composure for passivity. It is not weakness. It is patience with teeth. A kind of focused attachment that only the discipline can hold. It says, I am not threatened by what you do. I am not compelled to prove anything. I am not afraid to let silence speak for me. In every room, there's one man who does not compete. He doesn't jump into every argument. He doesn't chase every opportunity. He doesn't offer his opinion unless it's worth more than the silence it replaces. That man owns the room because his energy is rare. His presence doesn't beg, it commands. You may feel pressure to be loud, to assert yourself constantly, to take up space with sound. But in the end, those who are truly confident don't need the world's permission. They don't need to perform their power. They simply carry it quietly. And when that kind of quiet walks into a room, everyone notices. Composure is often mistaken for arrogance. But it is not built on ego. It is built on mastery. The mastery of timing, of presence, of expression. It is the ability to feel deeply and show nothing. To be fully engaged while appearing perfectly detached. And that illusion, the illusion of not needing anything, creates gravity. People move toward what moves away from them. They obsess over what ignores them. They submit to what does not beg. This is the paradox of power. The less you reveal, the more people imagine. The less you pursue, the more they chase. The less you speak, the more weight your words carry. The composed man is not silent because he has nothing to say. He is silent because most things are not. Worth saying, he doesn't waste presence. He doesn't dilute himself by being everywhere all the time. He waits. He appears when it counts. And when he does, people pay attention. Machiavelli warned that the appearance of virtue is more useful than virtue itself. Likewise, the appearance of indifference is more powerful than being truly indifferent. A man who truly feels nothing is numb, and numbness is weakness. But a man who feels everything and filters it with discipline is untouchable because he can sit across from chaos, from insult, from temptation, and still choose silence. You do not owe anyone your emotion. You do not owe the world your vulnerability. To be composed is to say, I decide what matters. I decide what enters my world. I decide when I speak and when I do not. That is the root of confidence. Not loudness, not confrontation, but the refusal to be moved unless it's on your terms. Watch how people panic in silence. Watch how they scramble to fill it. Watch how they confess too much, try too hard. Give away the game because they can't stand not knowing what you're thinking. That is the leverage composure creates. You say nothing and they reveal everything. You must understand this is not about playing games. It is about controlling space, emotional space, psychological space. If someone angers you and you remain calm, they lose control. If someone insults you and you remain unaffected, they become uncomfortable. If someone resists you and you do not chase, they question themselves. This is how power is built. Not through domination, but through discipline. The man who does not flinch has spent years training that stillness. He has faced his fears in private. He has burned through weakness in silence. He has learned the difference between reaction and response. Reaction is cheap. Response is rare. Reaction is instinct. Response is strategy. The composed man lives in response. He knows what he wants, but he is not desperate. He knows who he is, so he does not perform. He knows what he brings, so he does not sell himself. And this quiet certainty radiates. It does not need promotion. It is felt, not heard, seen, not explained. You must learn to sit with the tension of being misunderstood. To hold your expression when someone misjudges you. To delay gratification when attention is within reach. To keep your plan to yourself even when your ego wants applause. That is the cost of power, the price of poise, the discipline of composure. There will be moments when you want to react, when silence feels like weakness, when walking away feels like losing. But remember, most people are ruled by impulse. They act quickly, emotionally, loudly, and that noise is what buries them. That noise is what makes them predictable, vulnerable, replaceable. The man who is composed is never forgotten. Because, in a world addicted to stimulation, his calm is rare. His stillness feels unnatural. His restraint feels dominant. People don't forget how you made them feel. And being around someone who does not react, does not chase, does not need, makes them feel unsteady, but also curious, drawn in, engaged. This is how you shift the frame. Not by fighting for it, but by refusing to be moved. Not by convincing others, but by becoming the standard. A presence that doesn't seek validation. A mind that does not blink. A spirit that waits and watches. And acts only when the outcome is already decided. There's a reason leaders speak last. There is a reason the strongest men don't shout. When you are truly powerful, your silence becomes a weapon. You don't need to rush into debates. You don't need to insert yourself into every conversation. You let others exhaust themselves trying to be seen. And when the dust settles, when the noise dies down, you are still standing, calm, clear, unshaken. The composed man is not rushed by time nor swayed by popularity. He understands that the world is frantic by nature. People are impulsive, insecure, reactive. They chase trends, approval, attention. But when you rise above that, when you appear immune to the rush, you become magnetic. You stand out. Not by demanding attention, but by mastering your presence. Machiavelli understood this balance. He knew that to rule, a man must be feared more than loved, but without becoming hated. Composure walks that line perfectly. It inspires respect without needing affection. It holds power without needing volume. Because power built on mystery is more durable than power built on noise. When you speak, your words carry more weight. Not because they are louder, but because they are rarer. When you act, your movements have more impact. Not because they are grand, but because they are deliberate. The composed man does not waste himself. Every expression, every gesture, every moment of attention is measured, and that makes his presence feel sacred. People crave certainty. They look to others to feel safe, to feel guided, to feel anchored. The composed man provides that, not through reassurance, but through stillness. He does not explain himself. He does not overclarify. He lets his actions speak and his silence echo. And in that quiet confidence, others find stability. Even if they don't understand it, they feel it. You must learn to become the eye of the storm, the calm center in a world of chaos, not by pretending to be above it, but by mastering your own reactions. Every time you resist the urge to speak, you gain control. Every time you walk away without responding, you grow in strength because most people are slaves to emotion. They follow every impulse. But the composed man rules over his instincts. That is why he commands the room, because he commands himself. Even in relationships, composure is power. Not the cold shoulder, not emotional manipulation, but emotional sovereignty. The ability to care without clinging, to love without losing yourself, to be fully present without being fully exposed. When you hold your center, you create polarity, tension, depth, and in that space, others are drawn closer. Not because you chase them, but because you don't. There is a beauty in not needing, in being whole before anyone arrives, in not performing softness just to be accepted. The composed man is not unkind. He is simply unshaken. His peace is not a strategy. It is a state of being earned through trials, through loss, through quiet battles with the self. And that inner victory cannot be stolen. Machiavelli taught that fortune favors the bold. But boldness does not always roar. Sometimes boldness is refusing to be provoked, refusing to be baited, refusing to lower yourself to the level of those who are desperate to pull you down. That restraint, that quiet refusal is one of the boldest things a man can practice. The world will test your calm. It will insult you, dismiss you, misunderstand you. It will try to trigger you into reaction, into proving, into explaining. But the test is not about how loud you can fight. The test is whether you can walk through it all, silent and unmoved, eyes forward, shoulders steady, intent focused. That's what makes you rare. That's what makes you remembered. Not the noise you make, but the calm you keep. Not the approval you chase, but the gravity you carry. You do not become composed by accident. You become composed by design, with patience, with pain, with purpose. Power is quiet. Real power moves without sound. It does not explain itself. It does not seek applause. It does not chase validation. It simply exists. Immovable, deliberate, undeniable. And that is the essence of composure. Not pretending not to care, but being so rooted in self-mastery that the world cannot shake you. This is not the absence of emotion. It is the presence of control, the ability to hold tension without breaking, to hear insult without reacting, to feel pressure without rushing. The composed man is not void of feeling. He is overflowing with discipline. And discipline is the highest form of self-respect. You must understand composure is earned. It is not natural to most. We are born impulsive. We crave approval. We want to be understood. But the man who trains himself to rise above those urges, to delay gratification, to remain composed, To observe without reacting becomes untouchable. Not because the world stops testing him, but because he stops flinching. Machiavelli understood the theater of power. He knew that perception shapes influence. If you appear desperate, you are treated as weak. If you appear calm, you are seen as competent. If you appear detached, you are feared. The composed man plays this theater masterfully, not through manipulation, but through consistency. His power is not an act, it is a habit. He is predictable in his stillness. He does not react differently depending on who is watching. He does not become more impressive under pressure. He is the same alone, in a crowd or in conflict. That consistency creates trust, and trust, even when unspoken, builds control. When others realize they cannot provoke you, they start to adjust themselves. They hesitate, they reconsider, they reflect. Because you have become a mirror, and in your calm, they see their own chaos. Your restraint forces them to confront their own noise. And in that contrast, you rise above them without saying a word. This is not about superiority, it's about sovereignty. Being the master of your space, the ruler of your energy, the architect of your presence. You choose when to speak, when to move, when to reveal. You are never dragged. You are never exposed. You are never rushed because you've built an inner world that cannot be invaded. The composed man does not fear being misunderstood. He understands that mystery is more powerful than explanation. That suggestion is more seductive than confession. That a calm face is more commanding than a loud voice. He does not trade his strength for sympathy. He does not beg to be known. He lets others project, assume, wonder, and he remains still.